Greetings once again. It is still Sunday the 20th of July. And this is part 2. I had to stop the recording. And I didn't listen to the entire first part. I listened well enough to realize that I didn't make my point. And I also listened to the very end, in which the fans started to come unbalanced up above me. So, and it really puts me in a bad situation because I really have to have air conditioning in order to survive in the places I'm at. And this air conditioner is on the blink because the guy who did the roof job didn't know what he was doing, claimed he knew what he was doing, and he may have actually ruined my air conditioner for me. Man, that's going to be an expensive little change out right there. What I'm getting at, self-corrections, that's what I entitled this, self-correcting. I want you to understand we don't have to agree about everything. There are certain key things we need to agree upon, for sure. And if your perspective wanders a little bit, well, my perspective does too. Now, the main thing that I want you to understand is that each of us has his own way. It's an individual trip. It's a single subject design. Life is a single subject experiment. Sad thing is that we only get one life. And if we had one life to learn by and another one to live by, that would be about ideal, so we could learn how to live life properly and then in the following life do it properly. We don't get that. We have to live and learn at the same time. And believe me, there's enough stuff in my past that I really have regrets. And I know people say, well, you're supposed to have faith. It's all been forgiven. Well, look, a lot of this stuff has not been resolved. I mean, you can't take things back. You can't change things to a large extent, to a certain extent. I was just talking to one of the fellows I went to college with and used to ski with, a good friend of mine, and we were talking about some things, and I told him, man, I'm so glad I left the drugs in the past. You know, I also had some other difficulties, and those are very much in the past now as well. And I'm just so grateful for that. You know, I mean, I regret it to this day. I did stupid stuff. I got stupid results. So what I'm trying to get at is that it is the way, and I'm going to keep hammering it. It is your way. It's not my way. Your life is your way. And it's the way because you're supposed to, as a child of the Most High, you're supposed to have a relationship with God. That's what He wants. He wants that Holy Spirit built up. He wants that good, rich connectivity with you. This is my belief. And of course, as I was telling you about the A-team and the couple that went through the ice on the Yukon River in the wintertime, in their snow machine, one of the questions I asked the local missionary, and they had been there for 5 years with those people, so they really were well accepted, and they understood the people, and they were kind of isolated in a certain sense because they had their family, which was separate from the natives there, their children, and they were very dedicated to this. I mean, all I could think was, why does anybody want to come out here and live so remote and so isolated? I thought it was pretty remote and isolated in the village that I was operating out of Antioch. I thought that was, kind of remote, kind of in the boondocks, in the bush, as we call it. Well, he says they come to Christ. This is the pastor, the missionaries accounting me. He says, in their own way. Each of them has their own way. And at the time back then, I thought, it can't be that way. We all have to agree. It has to be our way or the highway. It has to be, we have to. No, we don't. We don't. That is de-willing. That is like becoming the devil. That is robbing someone of their free will. And the natives have a very pragmatic outlook, completely different than what we have. They don't rescue each other. Of course, here I am. My pathology is as a rescuer. And they do try to help each other to a certain extent, but they also have an attitude of, well, let's put it this way. The example given to me was, if you're out on the river and you can't start your outboard motor and you wave at the natives for help, they'll wave back at you, but they're not going to come over and help you. And you think, well, that's kind of racist of them, isn't it? No, it's their culture. And their culture is the same thing for their own people as it is for you and I. And that is that they look at the fact we can't start our outboard engine as a lesson from the universe, a lesson from Creator Father God. That's independent and self-dependent. And so they're looking at it as if they help you, they're going to deprive you of a valuable lesson that the universe, the Creator, has for you. And they felt it was interrupting. So if you can't start the engine on your boat, and believe me, those rivers all flow a long ways out to the Bering Sea. We're talking thousands of miles. Well, hundreds. And I think from where I was there, maybe even 1,500 miles out to sea. Then that was your fate, was to go out there so that nature could teach you a lesson. Now, this is what I was trained in and how I was helped by my native counseling counterparts, the people in the counseling office, to understand their culture. So we each have our own way. Yahweh wants to guide us in it, He wants us doing His will. He wants us doing the right thing, the best thing. He wants us turning to Him. So it is the way. Yahshua, that's what I prefer to call Him. The Messiah, and that's what I prefer to call Him as well, said that He was the truth and the way. The way. It's called the way. And it's singular, but yet there's a lot of us. And we have different paths. We take different paths. We have different footsteps. We don't walk on the same footsteps. And so I believe the saying is that we may choose our path. Yes, we might. But Yahweh chooses the footsteps. And of course, here I am. The sound that you heard at the end of the first part of this two-part series, I think it's only going to be 2 parts, was the fan going out of balance on the roof. And so I'm hoping that it just comes down to having to get a new gasket and balancing it properly, and that it might work again. Yeah, I try to live on the cheap because I kind of have to. I'm at the poor end of the spectrum, and I know that a lot of people, wonder, well, I get female attention. That's because they see doctor and they assume I got big bucks. And they don't realize how poor I am until they get involved and they see it, and then they want to move on because they want deeper pockets. And I think that's the way it was with the woman I first attempted marriage with, is she realized that I didn't have that much money coming in, so she wasn't going to get the kind of ride she wanted. She was used to spending $5,000 a month, and mind you, this was 20 years ago. $5,000 a month on over-the-counter prescription medications from the pharmacy. She was addicted to that shit. And addicted to other stuff. I don't really want to go into that. Some things are best forgotten and left alone. So what I'm trying to tell you is that it is the way because it is your way. It's not my way that you're going to live. It's your way. You have got free will. And if I try to dominate you, that makes me a de-willer. And according to Yogi Bhajan, the Siri Singh Sahib, D-Willers are devils. D-Willers. And there's a lot of truth to that. And then another friend of mine in the past, he would remind me that his wife wasn't going to church, and she was, wanting to know if she should go to church with him. And he assuaged her that she could stay at home because Jesus wants volunteers. That's what his saying was. But he was willing to let his wife do that and be separate. They were not equally yoked. And she wasn't a good wife, in my opinion. Not at all. And he and I went head to head over that because she was alienating the daughters from their fathers. She was a bad influence upon them, and was winding up these young girls and sending them to rebel against their fathers who had their best interests at heart. Yeah. Anyway, he played mind games on people, and some people thought he was probably an Edomite. I don't know, but I do know he explained to me the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, and how they did the ingredients on these different concoctions. And I was just starting to understand it, and I could have used a couple more lessons with him, but he did some stuff to me that wasn't respectful. And if there's no respect, cut him off. You command respect, you walk off, you don't have anything to do with those people. So it's nice to see my reflection here in the camera on the screen. I get reminded of my advanced age, and I don't look like my father. I look like my grandfathers at this point. I used to look more like my grandfather Charette. Now I'm looking more like my grandfather Kent, which is okay. I just wish I had gotten more time with those gentlemen. My grandfather Kent was older when I was born, and they were deteriorating quite a bit when I was younger, and the other grandparents had more life in them, or a little bit more loving and caring, and not so puritanical, not so reserved, not so stoical. More indulgent in emotions and in feelings. And the other was, even my maternal grandmother was very stoical. So it's nice to have had both of them, to be honest with you. But I want you to understand that I want to sell Bibles. There's 5,000 new Bibles coming in, and this may be all she wrote. I don't know what the prices are going to be. I imagine prices are going to be going up all the way across the board, and it's still going to be a better price. And it's more value than what you're giving for it, I'll put it that way. And I know everybody thinks they're entitled and should get something for nothing. And I know that in the prison ministry that those are given away. Okay, so that's for free. And I also know that the electronic distribution, which was started because the cost of shipping to Africa was astronomical, and we wanted to help those people. Sometimes I want to just leave them alone, and I think that would be helpful enough, but we're getting it out there. And then this idea that everybody has to believe the same way and be converted and follow the same formula for it. It doesn't hold water with me. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense because you're basically cajoling somebody to submit to your domination, to your rule for them, to your will for them, and that's not what Yahweh wants. Jesus was very, very clear. He said that my Father in heaven is your Father in heaven. He's our Father in heaven. And Jesus said he is Yahweh, the Father, is the Savior. He made that very clear. He also set an example saying he didn't do anything outside of his Father's will. And he submitted himself fully. And we are called upon to pick up our own cross and bear it. It's not that we have to go to the cross like he did, walk down the same stone pathway like he did, get beat mercilessly like he did. But we all have our own suffering to go through, our own learning to go through, our own growth to go through. And I do believe that you're not going to get another one of these lives. I don't think you're going to have life like this eternally at all. I don't think I want that for you or for myself. I think there's something greater and better. But I also think there's something unique about being here. And one of the things is that the angels want to come here as well, because they want to be able to eat food. It's one of the things that was pointed out that sticks with me. And of course, when the Messiah showed up among the mourning believers and ate food with them, I'm thinking, my Lord, maybe we get to keep eating food afterwards and have that enjoyment. And the nicest thing about food is the fellowship and the good conversation, the hanging out together. That's the company is far more important than the quality of the food is. But food is going to be a scarcity at some point here, and we are seeing the Old Testament prophecies coming to fulfillment. One of those being that Damascus will cease to be inhabitable. It's going to be reduced to sheer rubble. It's going to happen here pretty shortly, as far as I could tell. And it's not going to be destroyed by a flood alone like before. It's going to be a combination of all kinds of stuff. Everything is happening at one time. And so I do know that the time is being shortened, and out of mercy. And I got to admit that, yeah, I want to live. I want to keep living. But when it's time to go, it's time to go. I've already died once, physically. As far as dying to myself or the spirit that was reigning in me before, yeah, that's probably happened as well. So we can say that it's at different levels. But the main thing I want to get across to you is that the Bible speaks to us each differently. And I have said that I don't believe in the Holy Trinity, that I don't think it's a proper concept. Well, the Holy Trinity is not specified in the text. I know I'm kind of being a jarhead about it, kind of square about this. But there are passages that can be read as, look, it's three things in one. So that's kind of an important thing. And I know I pointed out the trinity of evil, so to speak. So there's three things in one associated with the evil. Okay. I don't even like going over those in my head. I get so paranoid and so worried about those things. I need you to understand that if we don't agree on everything, it's all right. If you know something in the Bible and you know it better than I know it, and I'm making mistakes, feel free to correct me. I encourage it. The whole purpose of this life is learning. I'm still learning, and in that sense, I'm a young man. I've been blessed in the last year or two with some recovery from the cognitive fog I had a couple of years ago. Wasn't thinking very clearly. And so I'm still working on that. I've also had a reprieve on the arthritis that has been racking my body and gotten relief from that to a large extent, but I don't even like mentioning it because then it tightens up, the body tightens up, and I hurt again, and I don't like that. So I want you to understand that we don't have to agree on everything, but there are core things that hopefully we will come to learn, maybe together, maybe not. Maybe you'll continue on and learn much more after I'm gone. So I do need some prayer and I need some blessings, because it was a bad deal on the rig, and it's breaking in ways that I just can't quite keep up with. And I don't know what's next, and I'm trying to work through the logistics of how to survive. And I know the steps have been laid out for me. And it's very hard for me to say, Yahweh, praise you when you're kicking the shit out of me. Praise you when things are uncomfortable for me, when I've been confronted on some of my bullshit. Okay, get corrected. Thank you for the rough stuff that I have to go through, that I've had to go through. You know, I try to look at it and say, well, it was serving a purpose. And yes, it was serving a purpose, but it was a little too rough on me. And I do have some talents, so I'm going to do my best to settle in an area where I can have a community again. I mean, it's been nice traveling. It's been nice having friends over the country, but I'm losing friends at a quicker rate these days. And I remember my father, I was talking with him on the phone. He was very depressed. I said, what's wrong? He says, I'm losing my friends. The people I grew up with are passing away, and I don't have many of them left. And he felt quite lonely because of that. And so I stayed in touch with my dad, and I did my best to build the best relationship I could with him. It was a very antagonistic relationship, and he didn't want to hear from me for a long time. And that anger he had against me was so deep that in his latter days, towards the end, he didn't even know he was talking to me. He thought he was talking to his other son, the one he liked better. And that's because his other son didn't know as much and wasn't moved by the Spirit as much and wasn't open and honest and was far more vaccine damaged and damaged by the medical system than this son was. And I was damaged by vaccines in the medical system as well. I rather hate that profession. And we have a post that's up here. And the post is whether or not anti-Semitism should be an entry in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, the psychiatry practices. So should we treat it as a mental illness, or should we just put the people in prison, treat it as a crime, throw people in jail instead? And of course, neither of them work, and they're both the therapeutic state, the control state. That's what I hate about psychiatry. Is they're just to control people. So when they refer you for a psychiatric evaluation, it's so they can get the goods on you and have something nebulous that you cannot disprove to hold against you. Because you can't disprove this negative. You can't recover from it. You can't step outside of it and save yourself or establish your credibility. But I'll tell you this. They're mostly assholes who practice in the field of psychology and psychiatry. Very few are good-hearted people, and even the good-hearted psychiatrists are quite misled. Psychologists, it's a little bit more open-minded. The people that have been in the field practicing, the fellow that trained me up who survives, let's see, I lost a supervisor then. I've got 2 supervisors that are still alive. There's a third one who's alive I haven't talked to in a while. I should give him a call. But they're very upset with the profession of psychology because we have been utilized to destroy America. The professions have been turned against the lazy. My friend, dear friend Andy told me that that's what Abraham Lincoln said, and I should entitle one of the chapters of my book that. When I looked it up, it wasn't Abraham Lincoln who said that, but it was this guy who was a famous playwright who is also a Fabian socialist who said that. So what we have today is Fabian socialism. They have conquered the world. They have pretended to be sheep, but they are wolves in sheep's clothing. Well, this sheep is getting kind of tired, and I'm sure you are too. I thank you for joining me once again. I need to sell Bibles. I need some thumbs up. By the way, I lost a subscriber the other day, and I've been looking, seeing the numbers down from 639 to 638. And I can't blame you. I guess I bore you perhaps, but I can't blame you if you're really very conservative and you've invested yourself heavily in the Trump stock. But you need to understand, Trump has, I don't want to say outlived his usefulness, but Trump has been subverted. Everything's been subterfuge to the point where I don't know where to turn to or what we can do, except we need to pray for President Trump that Yahweh shows up in his office and confronts him. And somehow or other, he's given some protection and some assurances, because obviously he and his family have been threatened by the same people that killed John F. Kennedy. The same group that's come through time that have inherited the mantle of the devils. No, there were problems when America was founded, for sure. But we have one choice, and that is to return to our roots, return to Yahweh and pray to Yahweh and repent. Because if we fail to do that, it's going to be much worse here. You see, the guys that really study the catastrophe stuff, that sort of technology, that sort of belief system, they've figured out that the big hit last time was on North America. This next time, the big hit is going to be upon Europe and Africa, the other side of the world. And the last time, North America got hit so bad that people weren't here. They left here. It was the wilderness. It took a very strong and noble people, namely the tall Indians, the tall natives, to take this place and hold it. And we should be grateful because they took it away from the giants. Oh my God, I think the last giant, the story I heard was that there were there's several stories and they're all about the same. But when the chief decided they had to go after the giants, it's like they lost half of there was a 50% survival rate on the party doing the assault for them and defending the people and defending these lands so that we would be able to have them today. And in case you're wondering, let me remind you, the Spanish conquistadors that came over here in the 1500s were short dudes, man. They were tiny guys. They were like, the average conquistador was only 4'7". That's right. And they were writing about the giants, the land of the giants. Well, for them, the 6'1", 6'2" tall giants, the Indians, those were giants. 1.5 feet taller, more than 1.5 feet taller. But we had bigger beings than that here. And the Indians were strong enough and noble enough to take them on and to quell them to quite a large extent. The last of the giants was killed approximately 500 years ago by the Pima Indians. And before that, there was a giant up in Oregon that was done in. We're talking about cannibals, big beings that eat people. The Smithsonian's no good. The government's no good at this point. The devil owns the whole planet. He controls the governments. These people that are all in the positions of power have, for the most part, made deals with the devil to get there. Can they renege upon the deal? I think they can. I want to be flexible enough to think they can change their course, change their minds, renege on the contract where they sold their soul to the devil, and that they can do good and earn their way. And you can say, well, that's not salvation. Look, any one of us has been through the hellish lives that we've led, the stupid shit that we've done, and repented of it. We're happy to have the opportunity to counteract that, to rescue somebody else, to pull somebody else out of those same flames. We're happy to see that happen. And join me. Please pray for me in my mission to travel the country and wake people up This is scary because this rig could break down in a fashion and in a way that I can't fix it again, that I can't move from where it breaks, that I could break down in the wrong neighborhood or in the middle of some damn peaceful demonstration in which they decide they're going to take my life, steal everything. Oh well. I'm not taking that with me, and that's not very important to me. But you, listening to this and learning, and then you in the future, who when I'm gone get access to these videos, you're important to me too. I know. Years ago, a young man visited me in my dreams in a vision, and he told me that I had gone deep into enemy territory. And he said the others said that I was lost. I went deep, so far under cover that they had lost me. And he says, but I knew better. I looked at him and said, what? He says, yeah, I knew better because you had trained me. And of course, I didn't recognize him. I didn't remember him. And he was there trying to wake me up. So my goal is to wake up my brothers and sisters, your brothers and sisters, our brothers and sisters in Israel. And we have to open up this path wide, because those people who really were not parties to the original covenants have to have a way in. And sadly, there was one tribe among us that turned to the dark side and went too far. And they're not coming back. And we see clearly that in the book of Revelations, that tribe was left out, and we haven't been able to figure out why. Yeah. Unfortunately, they went to the dark side. May Yahweh bless.